The 2025 NFL free agency period gets underway this week, and all eyes are going to be on the New York Giants quarterback situation. We'll talk about that and other burning topics in the weeks ahead. That's coming your way next here on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all of our written work over there. And as always, welcome on in to our Blue Crew community members, our everydayers, our newcomers, and everybody in between. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. All right, folks, here we are. Free agency. As I tape this, it is Sunday night. There's been a small flurry of re-signings by the Giants. Nothing major, nothing earth-shattering, but the big stuff is yet to come. Quarterback, cornerback, offensive line, maybe a few surprises along the way. Who will they keep? Who will they not keep? Will there be a trade? So much to talk about, so much to unpack. On today's episode, though, we're going to focus on the quarterback situation. Now, over the weekend, for those who missed the news, the Seattle Seahawks made a big trade, an unexpected kind of trade, I might add. They sent Geno Smith to the Las Vegas Raiders. And right now, the Seahawks don't have a starting quarterback. We're waiting to see what happens with the Minnesota Vikings. And basically, this just set off a whole chain reaction, if you will, regarding the quarterback situation. So we'll unpack that a little bit, how that potentially affects what the Giants might have available to them. Then we'll talk a little bit about the best options for the Giants quarterback spot. I know Aaron Rodgers has picked up some steam versus at the start of the combine a week or two ago, when it was kind of a break glass in case of an emergency situation. But that, situation is now kind of picked up a little steam. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll wrap things up with some other free agency expectations. So we're just going to get you ready for what is going to be a wild and busy week for the New York Giants. Fingers crossed at any rate. All right, let's jump into it. All right. Let's start off with the quarterback dilemma. Now, the Geno Smith trade accomplished a couple of things. The biggest one of which, it removed the Las Vegas Raiders from consideration for some of the veteran quarterbacks that the Giants might have been eyeing. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. There are about 9 teams, I want to say, that need quarterbacks. The Giants being one, obviously. Now Seattle being another. Tennessee's one. Cleveland's one. So you could go down a whole list. All right. But each team that needs a quarterback has a different need for a quarterback. So what I mean by that is you look at, for example, Seattle. Seattle was I think they won their division or came close to winning their division last year. They're going to be looking for a guy for the long term. All right. So a Sam Darnold, who has been reported to go to Seattle, he would be a good fit there. Right. Sam Darnold, of course, being with Minnesota. So Seattle's probably not going to need to draft a guy. Minnesota is interesting now because they lose Sam Darnold. They have J.J. McCarthy coming back. So J.J. McCarthy is presumably their future. So their quarterback need is a little bit different in that maybe they're looking for a guy who can start the first 4 or 5 games until J.J. McCarthy is ready. Because remember, McCarthy is coming off the knee surgery. So he may or may not be ready to start right out of the chute in 2025. So does an Aaron Rodgers make sense there? Could, but does Aaron Rodgers want to play a full season? Well, if he does, then I don't think Aaron Rodgers goes to Minnesota because I don't think he would get that opportunity unless, he could find his prime self, if you will. At some point, you got to think that Minnesota is going to want J.J. McCarthy to take over. Now, where's old friend Daniel Jones going to land? Now, the Colts have been mentioned as a possibility. The Steelers, I think, were mentioned as a possibility. Even the Jets, I think I saw, were mentioned as a possibility for Daniel Jones. So where does he land? All right. Now, that's going to be something to keep an eye on. Could Daniel Jones end up in Cleveland? Believe it or not, there has been a market that has been developing for Daniel Jones. So what does this all have to do with the Giants, you ask? Well, the answer is simple. The Giants quarterback need, they are looking for someone, as I understand it, who can come in and start this year. Even if the Giants draft a rookie, the intention, as was the case last year, was to let that rookie develop. Let him sit, let him get acclimated. Don't rush him into the lineup to where, things, get shaky and his confidence gets ruined. Fix the offensive line. Obviously, they have to do that. They've got an opening at right guard. Make sure you have everything solidified for the rookie so that when he does eventually take over, whether it's a first round pick, a second round pick, third round pick, whatever, when he eventually takes over, everything is settled. Meanwhile, let a veteran who has seen everything, done everything, let him start. And then the other important thing to remember in terms of the Giants' specific quarterback need, jobs are on the line. So they are going to want to get a guy in here who has won games before, a guy who has seen everything, a guy who's not going to get rattled. That's where, the talk of Aaron Rodgers makes a little bit more sense than maybe first thought. Now, I still think the Giants are going to see if maybe Russell Wilson willing to revisit talks with them. I would not be surprised if that were to be the case. I do think there will be a conversation with Aaron Rodgers, who still needs to be released by the Jets. I don't think that has happened yet, but that will be coming. Could they also see Justin Fields? That's a possibility, but I'm not so sure that's the way they go. Jameis Winston can still be a possibility. So the Giants' needs are a little bit different than, say, Minnesota. Because like I said, the Giants don't have a young quarterback waiting in the wings to take over. So if you look at the fact that the Giants wanted to get Matthew Stafford, and they really thought that they were going to get him, there was a lot of optimism in the days leading up to, that announcement that he was going back. But there was a lot of optimism from what I understand. And look, if they had gotten Matthew Stafford, I almost am positive that the Giants maybe would have felt less pressure to draft a quarterback in the first round this year. They might have even deferred the decision to next year. Now, I don't think they can. So, that all being said, the quarterback situation, this carousel that's rolling around and round, makes for very interesting viewing because you need the next domino to fall into place. I believe the next domino is going to be obviously Sam Darnold, who I think goes to Seattle. Then, of course, we need to see where Daniel Jones lands because that could affect obviously what happens. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Justin Fields, I have a feeling is going to go back to Pittsburgh, but he does well test the market from what I've seen. So we'll see if he gets an opportunity elsewhere. So a lot of unsettled spots right now. And I would fully think that the Giants will want to have their quarterback on board by Wednesday. Whoever it's going to be, I think that's a top priority. I think that's going to be, the number one thing. Hopefully that's the first thing we hear about on Monday as we, watch the pre-negotiation period or the negotiation period, the legal tampering period, whatever you want to call it, as we watch that unfold. Because that quarterback position, the Giants got to get that settled. And from there, then they can kind of figure out other things, right? They have an idea what they might want to do, but get the quarterback in place because you never know. Maybe something else pops up that you totally didn't expect. I mean, did anybody expect, the Hawks to trade Geno Smith to the Raiders? No, they didn't. So, or at least I don't think a lot of people did, I should say. So anything could pop up and we'll just have to see how that all plays out. All right. Coming up next, more on the quarterbacks, including the biggest obstacle that I see kind of getting the Giants' way, which we will talk about right after this. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. If you are waiting and wondering and worrying if you are going to get any money back on your taxes, worry no more. Get matched with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. Your TurboTax expert will give your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so that you can focus on your day. Your expert will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. That's how taxes are supposed to be. Get an expert right now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee for details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked on Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And this week, obviously, free agency is going to be going on. So the game plan for this week, we're gonna need to be a little bit fluid here because we don't know, obviously, when breaking news is going to happen. When something major goes down, I will be on with a reaction, like a short show, 10 minutes or so. Uh, Also with a short video. I'll have that for you as quickly as I can. And then I think at the end of each day, I will probably do a bigger recap for you. So the timing is going to be a little erratic, I think, because we just don't know when news is going to happen. We don't know, come Wednesday when these guys start signing or are allowed to sign their contracts, will they be available via conference call and all that stuff. So we've got to be a little bit flexible. So hopefully, you'll be with me this whole week as I try and get you that information. Of course, we'll also have it for you on New York Giants on SI. So make sure you're checking out there and you are checking out here, the Locked on Giants podcast. All right. Now, what is my biggest concern with the Giants quarterback situation? Folks, in having thought about this, really after Matthew Stafford decided to go back to Los Angeles, I thought, okay, the veteran pickings are kind of slim. Now, if I'm the Giants, I might make a call to Atlanta, see if maybe there might be interest in be Kirk Cousins, who does have, by the way, a no trade clause in his contract. But Kirk Cousins wants to start, so he might be agreeable to a trade to the Giants if he's guaranteed he can, be a starter. I don't know that the Giants would do that, but that's certainly an option. But basically, you look at the situation, and if you're looking at it with your eyes wide open, are the Giants, if you're a quarterback and you want to win and you want stability, are the Giants a team that you can find all that? And here's why I say that. This regime, Joe Shane, Brian Dable, they have been given a grace period, as we all know. They've got to win games. Now, any quarterback, I think, worth his weight in gold as a competitor will probably say, hey, no problem. I can come in and I can win games for you. But here's the problem, folks. The roster. You look at this roster and look, I get it. The roster's going to change, over the next couple of weeks as guys come and guys go. But if you're a free agent and you know that this coaching regime, this GM, is kind of hanging by a thread, that the pressure's on, that they have to win. Otherwise, there's a potential that they're all going to get swept out. Now, who knows who's going to come in. And if that new group that comes in, are they going to want you? Are they going to change things? What's going to happen? That might be a little unsettling. That might be a little off-putting for a potential free agent. So what would be, to me, a huge concern about who they might be able to get? Will they have to settle for someone who is like at the tail end of his career and he's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to just come in, prove myself and set myself up for the next team that I play for? Then are you going to get a quarterback in here, a veteran quarterback in here who will want more than, say, a 1 year or 2 year deal? I mean, there's a lot of question marks, I think, regarding the Giants situation. And, look, I understand why John Mara, Steve Tisch stuck with Brian Dable and Joe Shane, let them, you know, fix what they messed up. But I just can't help but wonder, is that going to be a factor in whether free agents want to come here? I mean, and I'm not even going to go into, the recent NFLPA survey, which, that was in itself that I could talk about at another time. But the bottom line is, there was a time that the Giants, I think, were a very desirable organization for free agents to come to. And while I think ownership is still well-meaning and well-intentioned, when you look at how this team has kind of unraveled the last few years, the stability that I think we all once enjoyed with this franchise is gone. So do you really, as a player, want to uproot your family and move them across the country or to another, to New Jersey to play for a team that you don't know what's going to happen? It's really a sticky situation, I think. And, look, that's why in having thought about it a little bit more, maybe Aaron Rodgers makes a little bit more sense. He's played in the area. He has a house already in New Jersey. Wouldn't have to go far. He's used to the taxes and all that other good stuff. Maybe he does make sense. And plus, Aaron Rodgers, he's a guy who, after the disaster that he had with the Jets, he's probably going to want to prove himself. The question now becomes is, do the Giants, are they willing to give him what he's looking for money-wise? I do believe the Giants are going to spend on a quarterback. They're going to have to get themselves a quality veteran. But I don't know. To me, this is just a bad year for a team to need a quarterback, both in terms of free agency and the draft. And it's almost like, do you just get a guy to get you through the coming year? And then do you start over in 2026 when the draft class is going to be a little bit better? But then you have a whole nother set of questions. Will this regime be back to make that pick? Will a guy that you sign, is he going to want a short-term contract, or is he going to be willing to stick around to mentor a young quarterback? It's just really a lot of question marks for me. And, that's just me, my interpretations. Maybe the Giants have this all worked out. They figure, okay, we know who we're going to go to. We've had preliminary conversations. We have a good feel for how this is going to unfold. But for me, from the outside looking in right now at the situation, I'm very curious to see how this quarterback situation resolves itself, because it's been a mess. And, the Giants re-signed Tommy DeVito, which, we've all been talking about was going to happen. But he's not the answer for the long term. I really don't think he is. I don't think they're looking at him that way. I think if they were, they wouldn't have brought in Drew Lock last year. I don't think they would have tried to get Matthew Stafford this past off season. That tells you kind of everything you need to know. DeVito, in a pinch, he could be, I think he could go in there and win a game or two if you need him to, or play a game or two if you need him to. But long term, I don't think he's the answer. So that being said, this quarterback situation, it's just going to set the tone for this Giants team, depending on who they get. And, here's the other thing I want to mention real quick. Joe Shane has told reporters in the past, this team is a lot closer to being, I guess, more competitive. He cites, 4/5 of the offensive line, Malik Neighbors, Theo Johnson, the running back, Tyrone Tracy. Okay, the defense needs some help. Maybe he feels, okay, I'm going to get a couple of guys in here, but nothing ever really goes according to plan. Sometimes, you think you're going to be able to fix stuff, and then, you get a curveball, and it just throws what you're doing into kind of a tailspin. And for Joe to say, look, I think this team is closer to being ready to compete. I will say this about that. I do think last year the Giants were better than a 3-win team. Are they closer to being able to compete with the Commanders or the Eagles or even the Cowboys. No, not even there. Not even close. Can they get there in time with the right moves? But to say that they're close, I mean, again, if you're a veteran quarterback coming in and you look at this roster objectively, what do you have to be excited about other than maybe Malik Neighbors? Decent running game. You know, Tyrone Tracy, not a bad player. Theo Johnson, an up and coming player. The offensive line, the starters are okay, but what about the depth? Because you know injuries are going to happen. So what's your appeal coming in here other than to maybe prove that you still got it? Those are my concerns about the quarterback position in particular. And can they fix it? Now, hopefully they will. Hopefully we'll have good news. We'll see. I'll keep you posted as I promise. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk about the rest of free agency. What are the expectations? Some names, all that good stuff. That'll be right after this. Hey, Giant fans, March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on all the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no waiting around. So go on and visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Again, that's FanDuel.com. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. Free agency kicks off today. If you're watching this show on Monday, it's kind of sort of kicked off a little bit over the weekend, the last few days, with teams re-signing some of their own players, with some trades being made, which become official on the first day of the league year, which is Wednesday. So from the Giants' perspective, nothing too exciting. As I record this, they re-signed Tamon Fox, outside linebacker, punter Jamie Gillian, tight end Chris Manhertz, and of course Tommy DeVito, and Casey Prater. Let's not forget him. So they've re-signed 5 of their guys. All right, low-cost signings. The big stuff is still to come. Now, we've talked about quarterbacks, obviously, just these last 2 segments. Obviously, the Giants need to resolve offensive guard, and I do think they will go veteran there. Guards are going to be kind of expensive. So, you know, ideally, if you're the Giants, if you can get a guy who could play guard and tackle, that would be really good value. But, you know, here's the other thing I really wonder about. They could, if they wanted to, kick Jermaine Alumar inside the guard. That's originally why they got him. The question is, okay, who's your tackle? So do they maybe draft a tackle? Do they pick one up in free agency? I'm not sure what the answer is. Personally, I think they would leave Jermaine Alumar at right tackle, get a guard in here. They went with the veteran route last year. That worked out well for them. I expect them to do that the same this year. Cornerback, obviously, is a big need. I fully expect that they will splurge on a veteran cornerback. You know, I want DJ Reed in the worst possible way. If they don't get him, I'd be happy with Charvarius Ward. I'd be happy with Carlton Davis, Byron Murphy. If he shakes loose, I'd be okay with that. You know, now over on New York Giants on SI, we did a could the Giants kick the tires on? And one of the guys we talked about was Darius Slay, who's just let go of the Eagles. Slay is on the back nine of his career. Probably has maybe another year or 2 left, I would think. Would he be less money? He would. Is he still have something left in the tank? I think he does. Is he the answer? He could be. But again, I would like to see the Giants get a young guy back there, a young veteran who can help anchor that defensive secondary and erase it from being a constant problem as it has been the last several years. That's a position, obviously, they need to address. Defensive line, which is another area. Now, this one, I have always, thought that they would go draft because this draft class is so deep. But in recent days and having looked over it, I could see where maybe they would pick up an inexpensive veteran if they could get one. Now, I know some of you have asked me about BJ Hill, who used to be with the Giants before they traded him for Billy Price, to the Bengals. A few years ago, they traded him for Billy Price, an offensive lineman. Would they bring him back? It's a possibility. It's certainly a possibility, but, I would like to see the Giants double dip, I think, at defensive line. They definitely, get a rookie in here, maybe a day 2 pick if he can, and a low cost veteran. Now, surprisingly, the Giants haven't, made any salary cap cuts yet. I thought maybe they would let go of Joaquin Nunez-Roches. That could still be happening, or maybe they say, you know what, we'll just keep him because he's a decent run stopper. That could be the plan. So, the bottom line with the defensive line is some of this young talent the Giants brought in, except for maybe Elijah Chapman, hasn't really worked out. DJ Davidson, not really working out. Jordan Riley kind of took a step back. So obviously they're going to need to add a lot to that defensive line position. Other spots, we can talk about depth, getting another running back. We can talk about adding, a receiver too, which I think is a sneaky need. Safety, as I've mentioned, is a sneaky need. Edge rusher, do you really want Tamon Fox as your third rusher? Do you want to maybe see if you could get somebody, in addition to, or a little bit, better or more well-rounded, I should say. So there's a lot of decisions to be made. Presumably Joe Shane and Brian Dable have put together a plan. But as I've said before, plans can go awry. So you better have a plan B, C, D, and E, just in case your plan A goes off the rails. So we'll see. It's just, well, you look at this free agency class, and to me, it's not one of the overall strongest ones in recent years. But if you look carefully, you find the right guys that fit into your culture, that fit what you're doing, I think you'll be okay. But I'm just really curious to see how this plays out, because this is just not a good year to need talent, especially if you have a lot of holes on your roster like the Giants do. But with jobs on the line, Giants better get this right, because another lost season, and we're going to be talking about a whole new regime next year leading into the free agency period and the draft. So we will see how it all plays out. All right, Giant fans, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Giants. Again, thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on Locked On Giants. Don't forget, be sure to check in. If you haven't already done so, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, click the little notification bell so that every time I post a video, you will be notified. I'm going to try and get the videos done and out to you as quickly as possible. So make sure you are doing that. For my audio listeners, I'll try and have those out for you as well as quickly as I can. So check it out. Stay with me all week long as I bring you all the updates on free agency. And if we have to go into the weekend, we will. But we will keep you up to date here on the Locked On Giants podcast of everything the Giants do in free agency. All right, Giant fans, that's going to do it for this edition. And I will see you at some point, I'm sure, on Monday. Take care, everybody.